Right now we're standing in the entrance point of Križna Cave. Križna Cave or Križna Jama, Cross Cave, is named after the Križna mountain, which is located above us. And Križna mountain is named after the Church of Holy Cross, which is located on the top of the mountain. So basically, cross means Križ, and that's how it was named. So it was named after that mountain. So here we can see the entire map of the cave system. If you combine the length of all tunnels together, you get over 8 kilometers of tunnels, and this blue color represents water. Water comes from Bloke plateau, that's about 5 kilometers in the north. There it vanishes and goes through the entire cave system until it vanishes here again, goes underground, and comes back on the surface, known as river Štebrčica, which later goes to the Cerknica lake. Cerknica lake is very interesting lake because it's moving its level of water. You know, in the dry season it can get completely dry, but right now, because we have a lot of rain, it's full. Okay, so what makes Križna Cave very special are these underground lakes. Here you can see they're numbered. Totally 22 in this tourist part, and also 20 more in this part where we usually don't take any guided tours. And these lakes were formed as the calcium carbonate from the water went back to the solid state. Something similar happens with stalactites and stalagmites when they are forming. Well, here they were formed at the water level. So barriers were formed, and over the time these barriers slowly grow up, and over time lakes were formed, and those lakes are now so big that can be crossed with the boat. So other thing which also makes Križna Cave very special are the bones of cave bear. Cave bears came to the Križna Cave during Ice Age, and they went almost the same way we'll walk today till they came to the so-called bear tunnel where they hibernated, and in the spring returned back to the surface. So cave bears actually have been in the cave only for winter time. Okay, so we also brought some bones from that bear tunnel to the main tunnel, so we will also see them there for display, so we also know much more about cave bears as we go deeper. So today we'll take 1 hour tour. We'll go on the dry part till we come to the first lake, then we'll hop with the boat, make a little round in the boat, and then return back to the surface. So this is 1 hour tour. It's also possible to extend it to 1 hour and a half tour, and that tour you can also visit bear tunnel and learn more about cave bears in the Ice Age. And also for those really cave lovers, this 1 hour or 1 hour and a half tour can be expanded to 4 or even 7 hour tour. So from first lake you go and you cross these small lakes with the boat till you come to the Calvaria. This is underground meeting of two rivers. This is the end of 4 hour tour. Then you get to go all the way back. And 4 hour tour can also be extended to 7 hour tour. From Calvaria you continue till you come to the Crystal Mountain, and then all the way back to the start. So because cave is under special protection regime, this 4 hour tour is only limited to 1,000 people per year, and this 7 hour tour only to 100 people per year. And this 7 hour tour can only be done during winter time because water levels are steady at that time. And 4 hour tour, it really depends. If we have dry season, we simply cannot go because there's not enough water for lakes to cross lakes. If there's too much rain, we simply cannot go because here is a small passage, and if water level is just too high, we simply cannot go inside. So that's for start. As we go walk through the cave, we'll stop at some points and I'll explain you more things about the Križna Cave. So each one of you got a flashlight. Use it so you can see where you're walking. Don't point light to other people's eyes because you can easily blind them. And the way is also marked by these 2 white stripes, so just stick between them and everything will be okay. Okay? Okay. Now let's go. Okay, you can turn off your lights for a moment, so you'll see there's still some light coming from the surface, and that was also the reason why the first people who came to this place stayed mostly only in this first part of the cave. So this part is called Cellar Hall. It's about 25 meters high, but it's not the highest hall. If you go on a 7-hour tour, you can come even to the halls, which are about 3 times larger than this one here. So how we know that people come here? They left some pieces of pottery. Also we found some pendants made from animal bones. Also some tools. We didn't find any skeletons or graves, so that's why we suspect they came here only when they're looking for the shelter and didn't stay here for longer periods of time. So this part, even it's about 600 meters from the first lake, can also be flooded, but only in very heavy rain. For example, 2014 was very rainy year, and water came from first lake to here and reached that level. So everything you see here was completely covered with water. That lasted only for a few days, and water returned back to the underground. Okay, so you can turn your lights on. As we go deeper in the cave, you also see some signatures which were left by the first explorers who later came to the mountain, to the Križna cave. Okay, so if you point your light up on the ceiling, you see some glittering, you see like some tiny crystals. Well, these are actually just water droplets which accumulate on the layer made by bacteria. So we're actually looking at the reflection of bacteria. So these bacteria are different species. So for example here they look like they're colored white, but as we go deeper in the cave we also see some bacteria which are also colored yellow, so it looks like there's some gold on the top of the cave. So here you can see that something happened with the ceiling because it suddenly collapsed down. So that happened about 800,000 years ago. It will also happen in the future, but believe me, it won't happen today. You know, it didn't happen till now, and it won't happen today. So this is the natural process of the cave. Sooner or later, every cave will begin, the ceiling will begin to fall down, and eventually, over thousands of years, there will be just a big hole up to the sky. So something similar happened in nearby valley of Raku Škocjan. If you came from Cerknica, you probably saw a sign. So that valley was once a big cave where ceiling suddenly began to fall down, and as time passed, entire ceiling fell down except for two places, one small natural breach and two big natural breach, which can still be visited today. The entire valley has been transformed to the normal valley, you know. So when you come there, you don't have an idea that anything happened here. There was some kind of cave there. So watch your step here. This part is a little bit slippery. Okay, so now we're about 200 meters from the entrance, and we can do a little experiment. If we turn off our lights, you will see that actually can't see anything, you see? Except there's light from that camera, yeah? So you can imagine that people who were first explorers of Križna cave didn't have these flashlights like we have today. Also they could only rely on their torches. So anyway, even when they came only this far in complete darkness, they felt very proud of themselves. And that's obviously was the reason why they had to make a signature on the wall so everybody will know they were there. So that's how this wall with the signatures was created. So you won't find the oldest signature here. The oldest can be found near First Lake and goes back to the 16th century. Here you can see much younger from 19th and 20th century. It's also interesting that the style of signatures changes over time. Those older are more nice, you know, more detailed. Much the younger are, more messy they are. So you also see there are two colors. Black ones is from the charcoal, so when the torch is extinguished they use that charcoal as a pencil and made a signature. And that red one over here is from the soil on the ground. So they just mixed that soil with the water and made one improvised pen and made a signature. That's how we have this red color. So if you come here in the winter time, you can also usually find here some bats. Bats are also coming to the Križna cave because they need a place for hibernation during winter time. So mostly you can find them in the winter. Today, if you are lucky, we might see 2 or 3 of them. Okay. Okay, you can step a little closer. So here you can see first structures of the cave. Before it was impossible because the ceiling has collapsed, but here you can see first stalactite, so those things which are hanging from the ceiling down, and stalagmite, which are situated at the bottom of the cave. So on stalactite you can see it's colored yellow. This is the same bacteria as before, only different type, so that's why it's colored slightly yellow. And left of it you can see that black dot over there, you see? So that one is a bat. It's the smallest species of bat in Slovenia. It's called little or lesser horseshoe, and it's known visitor of Križna cave. So as I said before, bats can usually be found in winter time because they come here for hibernation. Temperature in the Križna cave is 8 degrees through all year. That is the reason why also bats are coming, and was also the reason why the cave bears in the Ice Age came this far to the cave, because they needed a place for hibernation. So you can also imagine that cave bears didn't have any flashlights or torches when they were walking through the cave. So mostly they could only rely on their sense of smell. So they just smelled their cave bears who were going in front of them, and they also relieved their scent as they crossed some parts of stones. This here, for example, you can stop closer. So you see, this rock is polished, like someone used sanding paper and just polished it. Well, it was actually polished by passing of cave bears. You can imagine that this lasted for a long time, and cave bears had enough time. You know, they were in Križna cave from approximately 100,000 years ago to 30,000 years ago, so they had time. And if you have time enough, sooner or later this will form. So these polished stones are also usually the first sign of cave bear activity when the new cave is discovered. And that was also in the Križna cave. You know, Križna cave, when the first explorers came here, they didn't found any bones just lying around, but they actually had to dig beneath them, and so they could find some bones. So they only knew that cave bear was here because they saw this. They just followed this trail till they came to that bear tunnel, as we where the most of bones can be found in the Križna cave. Okay. So that polished stone, it can also be found in nearby stones. For example, here, not only there, but also in surrounding stones. So you see, they are lefting their smell everywhere. Okay, you can turn off your lights. This one is strong enough. So if you look up, you can still see again a lot of those bacteria. Looks like Milky Way here. Actually just bacteria. So as I said before, cave bears were coming to the Križna cave because they needed a place for hibernation. And they came from the entrance and followed their way all the way here. You see, I'm pointing. And in that direction lies a cave bear tunnel where all cave bears went. Later, that tunnel was closed by stalagmite from this part, so another way had to be found, and we found it on the other way. So you see, as we go deeper in the cave, you also see the entrance to the bear tunnel way. So how big were these animals? We can see two skulls. This one from the top is from the brown bear, which can still be found in Slovenian forests today. This is a young brown bear. Skull of adult is slightly bigger, but not bigger than this one here. And this is from the cave bear. So you see, it's quite a difference. Also the difference how heavy they were. Brown bear can reach about 400 kilos, but cave bear could easily reach even 1,500. So about 5 times heavier than brown bear. It's also interesting that brown bears are now omnivores. They eat everything, you know, animals, plants. It really doesn't matter. Well, they found, based on analysis of the teeth, that cave bears ate only plants. So their entire diet was only based on the plants. So in the winter time, they simply had to find some place to sleep, because otherwise they would die. So as the cave bears hibernated, some of them obviously didn't survive. That's how we found these bones, and the reasons are very various. Some of them were just too old, some of them were maybe just sick, some of them didn't have enough food reserves for the surviving through the winter. So anyway, when they died, their bodies slowly decomposed, and all that remained from them were just bones. Those bones were later covered with mud and water. You must know that Križna cave was not like it's now here. Sometimes in the past it was entirely covered with mud, and mud was brought here from the surface by the water. And a lot of water came to the Križna cave after the end of Ice Age, because a lot of ice and snow melted, and all that water just came to the Križna cave and also brought more mud. So essentially over years those bones were slowly covered with mud. For example, this one here is a bone of cave bear. You can touch it. It won't bite, don't worry. So it's a fossilized, so that's why you can take it. Oh, okay. No, it won't bite. No. So basically, this bone is about 30,000 years old. And was also found in the Križna cave. It's from this part. But this is not the oldest bone. You can also find much older bones. So as I said before, it's black because it's fossilized, so there's nothing organic inside anymore. So if some dog comes it and you give it to the dog, it won't matter, you know? It won't like it. So these bones, as I said before, were covered with mud. For example, if you look this stone, this piece of rock, which was brought from the bear tunnel, as you can see, it looks like ordinary rock. Some stalagmites are forming on the top, but if you look what's beneath it, you can come to some interesting things. So here you have some teeth. Also this one is from the spine. And also
and
some
small, what is this?
This white. You know, from time to time we need to put some material on the top of these bones so they, so we prevent, you know, because people are constantly touching it.
Okay.
That's why this is some kind of protection.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's why it's white. So these are not covered, and you can see that are slightly different. So these bones are here about 10 centimeters beneath the ground. But you can also find some places in Kaypea tunnel where you can find these bones even 1 meter beneath the ground. And those bones are also much older than these here. So these are about 40,000 years old. Those can reach even the age of 100,000. And these bones were, of course, sometimes also transported by the water, so you can find a lot of them in all places, you know. But usually they're just scattered around. Okay, any question about cave bears? No? Okay, then you can turn on your lights. Now we'll continue to the water part of the cave. So before we continue, I just want to show you a glimpse of the animal life in Križna cave. So you see, this here is the result when some mammals come to the Križna cave and go to the toilet, yes? But these white centipedes you see around them, these are cave animals. And they're totally white because, you can step closer, they're totally white because they lost pigmentation as they evolved to the cave animal. So this is the real cave animal. You can also find animals who don't live constantly in the caves, for example bats, but these centipedes live through all time here. So if you look on the other side, you can also see some interesting stalagmite. It's called Chimborazo and it's named after a volcano which can be found in the state of Ecuador. And this Chimborazo has a lot of these pans below, you see? These are now dry, but as the rain season comes, they eventually get filled with the water. So here you can also see the miniature version of those lakes, which can be visited on 4-hour tour. So calcium carbonate from the water slowly goes on these barriers, and these barriers are slowly growing up. That's how this is going. So watch your step here, down. It's a little bit muddy here. only spotted these interesting forms here. You can move a little bit farther so everyone can take a look. So these are actually made by water. So there was no people who came here and doing this with the spoon. This was made entirely by the water. So what happened is, as the water level rises, water goes to the great velocity near the wall. Small vortices are made, and these slowly eat limestone away. So limestone is slightly soluble in slightly acid water, and water that is mixed with the calcium or with carbon dioxide from the atmosphere gets acid enough so it can melt limestone. So these are a scientific name, it's called facetes. They can be found in all water caves. So if you look up, you can also spot some facetes even on the ceiling, so that means this part of the cave was once completely flooded with water. And occasionally it can still be flooded. For example, last September, when we had very rainy month, water level here reached about this. So we couldn't go deeper because it was just too dangerous. Watch your step here, stick to the right side. So here you can see one of the most active stalactites in the Križna cave. Water is constantly dripping from it, that's why it's much larger than the rest of the stalactite. And here on the left, again you see one black spot. That's again a bat, you see? That one here. They're very, very tiny. So if you look surrounding stalactites, you can also see that some of them are slightly bent or curved. You see, some of them on the left side, some of them on the right side. So the reason why they're bent is because airflow in the Križna cave can sometimes be so strong it can also affect the way these are growing. So you can imagine that water drop on the end of the stalactite moves if on some other side if there's enough strong air. So in summertime, wind is blowing from cave out. You probably noticed that there was some cold air coming from the cave. So in the winter time it changes, so it's going inside the cave. So, and if you have bigger temperature variance, stronger the wind is. Okay, so on the other side you can also see the entrance to the air tunnel. So we also have special tours where you can also visit that part of the cave, and as you visit you can take about 10 minutes walk till you come to the small chamber, and you can see much more bones of the cavers than we saw before. Okay, so behind that hill the first lake is waiting for us. So here you can see more stalactites, and you see also there are different colors. For example, here is brown, you also have white color. So basically these colors are a result of that material which comes with the water. So this brown usually is a result of iron particles in the water. The completely white is pure calcium, calcium carbonate. And if you look on the other side here, you see it's black. And it's black because it contains the ions of mangan or manganese ions. So somewhere above us there's one vein very rich with manganese, and manganese is slowly dripping down and coloring this stalagmite. So right now we're about 50 to 60 meters below the ground, but there's still some tunnels which connect this part of the cave with the surface. We notice this because in the times of heavy rain it suddenly starts to raining also here, but not today. It's not enough rain. So watch your step here. So now we came to the first lake. This is one of the 22 lakes which could be found or visited in the Križna cave in guided tours. So as you can see, it's quite big. It's big enough for one big boat, which we are now waiting. The boat went on the other side, and it's about 100 meters long. And as soon as they come back, we'll go with the boat around the lake and see also what's hiding on the other side. So here you can also see the smaller boat, and that boat was used by those cavers who visited when we were going to the cave. So they went on the 4-hour tour to see how they were dressed. They had helmets, also overall for protection against dirt, and also 3 pairs of socks because it can easily get cold if you're sitting a long time in the cave. If you go deeper in the cave, there's some parts when you need to bend your head if you're on the boat. If water level is just too high, you simply cannot go. Okay, just move here so they have the space. Wait. And then sit on that yellow part. There's also my hand if you need it. Okay. Come. Okay. Okay, so from time to time some stalagmites and stalactites behave like they were once animals. Here we have one example. You see, it looks like a small bear. You see, that markings were just left when they were measuring the length of the cave. It looks really like one small cave bear just waiting for the visitors. Fortunately, he's vegetarian, so it won't made by water. So what happened is that water level was once much higher because lake was not, bottom of lake was not here, but it's a few meters above us. That's how these holes were formed. So water was just rushing this and circling, and over time these tiny holes were made. So here you can also see some interesting structures. If you have a limestone and the water passing on the limestone in enough time, sooner or later you get these structures. So basically these ridges were formed after the water continuously went from the upper state down, and as that continued over time, limestone began to melt, and after a few thousand years we have this situation. You see all these ridges? See? Yeah. Sometimes be also completely flooded. In 2014 we had such flood, and water level, you saw that in the first part of the cave water level reached quite high levels. So here you can see also the line which shows the distinction between this mud covered and not covered, you see? So all this that is covered with mud was also flooded with the water. So you can see that water level here was about here. So also this limestone stalagmite was completely covered with water. Here you can also see them. See? So that means that water was also flowing from this part of the cave, but that happened long time ago, because these facades were later covered with this sinter stone, and they're not so visible like those in the water part of the cave. So this means here we have also evidence that for this part was also once flowing quite great amount of water. Also see, you can see them here clearly. You see. A little closer, you can see in the distance there is also already entrance there. But before we go to the entrance, I just want to show you something which is very interesting, because from the point of this perspective, how time stops completely in the Križna cave or in other caves. For example, this stone you see, they look like they fell just recently, or they fell down long time ago. And something similar is also for this crack here, you see? So this is basically the crack between two plates, and if you look carefully here, you can see one black layer over here, you see? And on the other side also black layer there, but they're not in the same line. So what means one part of this and heavy heavy stone structure simply slided up and one down, you see? So if you go up, on the surface you probably won't notice anything, because time made its way, you know, erosion process eroded everything. But here, where time actually stops, you can still see what happened a long time ago. So this is why caves are also so important, because you can sometimes see something which happened even 500,000 years ago or more. As I said before, cave bears were going to the Križna cave because temperature were high enough so they could easily hibernate through the whole winter time. So people usually ask also why they went so deep in the cave, you know, 500 or 600 meters deeper. This here explains the situation. So here air from the surface can still reach this part of the cave. So even it's very cold, you know, -10 or -20 degrees, it comes to here, and what it happens here, that stones begin to crack because of such extreme cold. So this limestone and also dolomite can trap some water inside these pores, and as this water expands during winter, during freezing, it begins to crack. So here we can see an example of erosion because of freezing. See? And this happens in this first part of the cave. Also, if you visit Križna cave in winter time, at the entrance sometimes you can also see big ice candles. But as soon as you come to all those bones, you remember where we were? At that bones, the influence from the surface ends. So there's temperature begin to remain constant. So that from the entrance to here, it's still it gets quite cold. What we saw today, so if you remember, we entered here, then we passed that wall with the signatures. Also, you also saw bones of cave bears. Then we came to the first lake, made a little trip, and returned back to the surface. See? So it could also be possible to go to this bear tunnel and also to continue from the first lake through all 13 lakes till you come to the Calvaria. But not today. Eh? Okay, so any question maybe? Okay, then thank you for a visit and have a nice day.